The Arizona sun burned hot over Willow Creek in 1882, turning the town's main street into a wavering river of heat. People crowded near the wooden auction platform, whispering with excitement. They had come to watch something they called entertainment. Samuel Hayes stood at the edge of the crowd, his weathered Stetson pulled low over gray eyes that carried years of sorrow. At 35, he had known more loss than most men, twice his age. On the platform stood a young woman in chains. Elena looked about 23, with tangled auburn hair that caught the light like sparks and amber eyes that held fire even in the face of danger. Her dress was torn, her arms bruised, and dried blood marked her mouth, but she stood tall, facing the crowd without fear. Every man who looked at her felt the heat of her anger. Pritchard, the auctioneer, strutted across the platform like a rooster. He lifted her chained hands for the crowd to see. He claimed she had been found living wild in the canyons, stealing to survive, fighting anyone who tried to stop her. The way he spoke made her sound less than human. Elena's voice cut through the noise like a whip. She warned that she was no horse to be broken, and that any man who tried would pay dearly. Some men laughed. Some stepped back. Samuel felt his stomach twist. He had seen cruelty before, but this felt worse. The bidding began, each offer mixed with crude jokes about taming her spirit. When Bull Morrison shouted a bid of $40 with a dark grin, Elena spat toward him. The deputy struck her hard across the face. Samuel's jaw clenched as she fell sideways, blood fresh on her lip. Before he realized he was moving, Samuel stepped forward. The crowd fell silent as he climbed the steps. He spoke calmly and offered $100. No one had been expecting that. Even Pritchard gawked at the pile of bills Samuel placed in his hands. Bull Morrison tried to protest, but one look from Samuel stopped him cold. Samuel had a quiet reputation. Men said he was fast with a gun, fair in his dealings, and dangerous when pushed. Morrison backed down. Samuel told the deputy to unlock Elena's chains. When they fell, she rubbed her raw wrists and stared at him with eyes full of suspicion. She told him she was not property. Samuel said he never claimed she was, but the law saw it differently, and getting her away from this place was the best he could offer. He asked her to choose between going with him or staying with the men who leered at her like wolves. Pride fought with survival in her expression. At last, she gave a short nod. Samuel told her she could ride beside him, not behind. That small respect seemed to confuse her, but she did not refuse. They rode out of Willow Creek as the sun set, painting the sky red and gold. Elena rode beside him on a mare he gave her to use. She stayed silent, watching him with guarded eyes. The desert spread around them like an ocean of dust and stone. After hours on the trail, Samuel finally said they would make camp soon. Elena did not respond. She looked like a cornered animal ready to run at the slightest wrong move. They reached a grove of cottonwoods near a spring. Samuel dismounted and tended his horse. Elena stayed mounted, watching every move he made. He told her the ground was safe and the water clean. He said they would rest there. She asked what would happen if she chose to keep riding. Samuel said it was her choice, but warned that pushing the mare too hard in that harsh land would lead to death for both of them. Then he turned his back to gather firewood. It was his way of showing trust. After a moment, he heard her dismount behind him. She said she would stay for the night. He built a fire and laid out 2 bedrolls, far apart. He offered simple food. Elena cared for her horse with gentle hands before sitting by the fire. She ate quickly, with the hunger of someone long denied a safe meal. Then her question burst out. She asked why he bought her and what he wanted. Samuel took time to answer. He said he could not watch what was happening to her. As for what he wanted to go home to his ranch and rest. He said he did not plan to take anything from her. She studied him with fierce, unsure eyes. Then she asked what would happen if she ran. Samuel said she could run if she wished. He would not chase her. But he warned that the desert did not care about freedom. The fire crackled between them, its warmth softening the night. For the first time, Elena asked something without anger. She asked what his ranch was like. Samuel described it honestly. Hard land, Tough work. Good men. No one expected more from her than they expected from any other worker. Elena stared into the fire and whispered that she never had a real home. Samuel poked the flames, giving her space. Bit by bit, she told him her past. Raiders. Capture. An escape that led to 7 years alone. She said people called her wild because she would not return to their world. Samuel told her it took courage to survive that long. Elena said it was fear, not courage. He listened. Then he shared his own loss, the wife he buried under a cottonwood tree years ago. They sat under the stars, two people scarred by life but still standing. For the first time that day, Elena relaxed. Her hand brushed his arm, light as breath. Maybe fate had brought her there. Maybe two hurt souls could help each other heal. Samuel covered her hand gently. He said they were not broken, only tempered by fire, stronger for surviving it. Under the night sky, something small and quiet began between them. Not love yet, but the start of something real. The sun rose pale over Triple Creek Ranch, casting long shadows across the dusty yard. Elena stood at the porch edge on her first morning there, unsure of her place. Samuel had shown her the bunkhouse, the kitchen, the corral, and the well, but she moved with the tense grace of someone ready to run. The ranch hands watched from a distance, unsure what to make of the woman Samuel had brought home. Breakfast was served at 6. When Elena did not appear, Samuel found her by the well, arms crossed, chin tilted in stubborn defiance. He told her simply that meals were served on time, and anyone who missed them waited for the next one. When noon came, hunger won, and she slipped into the kitchen, sitting at the far end of the table. Tom, Miguel, and Billy kept their voices calm and steady, giving her space. After lunch, Tom asked her to help with laundry. Elena froze. She said she did not know how. Tom told her there was no shame in learning. She stiffened, but she followed him. Cooking did not go as easily. Samuel told her she would help with supper. She refused. He told her no one on the ranch was a servant, and no one was above the work. She refused again. Samuel looked at the men and announced that if supper was not made, then they would all go hungry. They sat silently, waiting. After minutes that felt like hours, Elena slammed her palms on the table and agreed, though she did not hide her frustration. Miguel helped her with kindness, showing her each step. When supper was served, Samuel thanked her. The simple words caused a flicker of something in her eyes. Respect. Confusion. Maybe even acceptance. The next day brought the turning point. Billy was working with a young Mustang and losing the fight badly. The horse reared and struck out, fear in every motion. Elena leaned on the fence, jaw tight, until she could not stand it any longer. She climbed over the rails and approached the Mustang slowly. Her voice softened, almost musical. Within minutes, the frightened animal calmed under her hand. She told Billy the horse was scared, not vicious, and fear made everything wild. Samuel stood in the barn doorway, watching her speak to the Mustang. When she turned and met his eyes, the moment felt like a bond forming in silence. From that day on, Elena worked with fierce dedication. She learned to mend clothes with Tom and cook with Miguel. She helped Billy with the horses. She ate at the same table every day, sitting a little closer each time. The ranch began to feel less like a place she had been forced to go and more like a place she might stay. But trouble on the frontier never rests. One morning before dawn, thunder shook the quiet. Samuel grabbed his rifle, thinking it was a storm, but the glow outside came from torches, not lightning. Riders approached the ranch in a heavy cloud of dust. Tom shouted from the yard that they had company. Samuel stepped onto the porch, Colt in hand. Elena appeared beside him holding a kitchen knife. 15 riders thundered into the yard. Jake Morrison led them, his smile sharp with cruelty. He claimed they were there for stolen property. He wanted Elena. Samuel said everything on his land was paid for. Jake called her a prize taken from their town. Elena stepped forward and told them she would never be anyone's prize. The men laughed until her knife flew and sank into a post near one man's head. She promised the next throw would find flesh. Tom, Miguel, and Billy stepped up beside Samuel, guns ready. Elena said she would take 3 of them down before they got her. Jake saw the resolve in their eyes and knew the cost would be high. He pulled back, promising it was not over. Samuel gave him 60 seconds to leave his land. After the riders fled, Elena's hand shook. She dropped onto the porch steps, breath unsteady. She said she should leave. Jake would return and people would get hurt because of her. Samuel told her the blame belonged to Jake, not her. Tom agreed. Billy nodded. For the first time in years, Elena leaned on someone, even just for a moment. 3 days later, Willow Creek held a town meeting. The barn was packed. Samuel arrived with Elena, and whispers filled the room. Judge Cornelius Blackwood stood at the front, ready to hear the case. Jake Morrison accused Elena of theft and assault. Samuel defended her, calling her a human being, not a creature. Jake claimed Samuel had bought her like livestock. Samuel said he paid the price demanded by the town, but she was free to leave any time she wanted. Elena stepped forward and told her story in a clear, steady voice. She admitted she stole food and blankets, but only to survive. She asked why no one ever wondered what drove a child to hide in the wilderness rather than seek help. She said she lived 7 years alone without killing a soul, and asked if every man in that barn could say the same. An older woman confirmed Elena's family had been victims of raiders. The judge listened carefully. He asked the crowd why they were so eager to punish someone who already survived more than most people could endure. He dismissed charges from her years as a minor in captivity. He said she must repay the food and goods she took, but added that Samuel would stand as guarantor. Jake exploded, but the judge silenced him. The judge declared Elena a free citizen. Anyone who harmed her would face justice. As they rode out of town, Elena looked at Samuel and thanked him for defending her, for seeing her as a person when so many saw an animal. Samuel said she earned her place, and he meant every word. But the frontier had one more trial waiting, one far colder and far crueler than any man. Winter arrived with a force no one in Willow Creek had seen in years. The blizzard came without warning, sweeping across the land like a living thing hungry for anything caught in its path. Samuel had ridden out to the eastern pastures to check the cattle just as the first icy winds hit. Within minutes, snow fell so thick it erased the horizon. The world turned white and wild. Back at the ranch, Elena felt a cold fear twisting in her chest. Something was wrong. Samuel should have been home long before the storm hit. Tom met her in the barn, his face pale with worry. Samuel was missing, and the eastern pasture lay right in the storm's path. Elena did not hesitate. She grabbed blankets, rope, and climbed onto her mare. Tom tried to stop her, but she shook her head. The ranch needed him, and she would not let the man who saved her be taken by the storm. She rode into the blizzard, leaning low over her horse as wind screamed like a living creature. The snow cut at her skin, the cold hurting deep in her bones, but she pushed on. She had lived through worse. She had survived alone for 7 years. She would survive this too. She found the cattle first, huddled together near a rock formation, frozen and still. The storm had trapped them. If Samuel fell here, the ranch would lose everything. Elena called his name again and again, her voice swallowed by the wind. Then she saw a dark shape in the snow. Samuel's horse stood trembling but loyal, guarding something on the ground. Elena threw herself from her mare and fell beside Samuel. He was conscious, but fading. His lips were blue, and blood trickled from a cut on his head. His ankle was bent at an angle that made her stomach twist. He whispered her name, telling her she should not have come. She ignored him. She pulled him to his feet, her strength fueled by fear and determination. When he cried out, she steadied him, whispering that he had to hold on. She lifted him onto his horse and placed the reins in his shaking hands. She told him to trust his horse to find the way home. She slapped the horse's flank, sending Samuel into the white void. Then, she turned to the cattle. Saving 60 head in a killing storm should have been impossible. But Elena had learned to read fear in animals. She worked through the herd, pushing the led steer until the others began to follow. She shouted, waved her arms, and fought the wind with every breath. Hours passed as the blizzard tore at her clothes and froze her fingers, but she did not give up. Those cattle were Samuel's future. She would not let that future die. At last, through the swirling snow, she saw light. Torches. Tom and Billy came running, guiding cattle through the gates as the storm howled around them. Elena reached the ranch and finally collapsed, her body shaking uncontrollably. Tom caught her before she hit the ground. Inside the kitchen, warmth hurt like fire. She curled near the stove, teeth chattering until Samuel spoke her name. She looked up and saw him propped on a chair, ankle splinted, head bandaged, alive. He told her she had been a fool, but a brave one. She told him he was welcome. Tom reported that every single head of cattle made it home. The men looked at Elena with awe. They knew no one else would have survived that ride. For 2 days, the storm raged outside, but inside the ranch there was safety, hot food, and quiet conversations. Elena spent hours at Samuel's side, helping him drink water and checking his bandages. Samuel watched her with eyes full of something deep, something he had not felt in years. When the storm finally ended, the world sparkled in sunlight. Snow covered everything in white diamonds. Samuel stepped onto the porch using crutches. Elena stood beside him, wrapped in a blanket. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he asked her to marry him. Elena froze. She had lived 10 years with nothing but survival. No one had ever offered her a place at their side. No one had ever spoken to her with such quiet certainty. Samuel told her he did not want to cage her or tame her. He wanted to stand beside her. He wanted her laughter, her fire, her strength. He wanted a partner. She warned him she was not easy to love. He said he was not easy either, and maybe that was why they belonged together. Something in his voice broke the last piece of the wall she had built around her heart. She kissed him, snow bright around them, and said yes. Tom, Miguel, and Billy cheered from the doorway. Inside, the ranch filled with warmth and celebration, while winter's wind howled outside the walls. Elena looked at the people who had become her family, and she felt something settle deep inside her. No fear, no doubt, just home. Samuel asked her if she regretted anything. She looked around the room, at the man who had seen her for who she truly was. She said she had no regrets. She had ridden long and far, through pain and loneliness, through storms and battles. But every mile had led her here to love, here to safety, here to a place where she was free. The wild girl no man could tame had found not a cage, but a life. A future shared with the man whose heart she had entered without even knowing it, and he had entered hers just as deeply. Together they stood against the wind, strong and unbroken. Their future stretched before them, bright and boundless, as wild and beautiful as the desert itself.